So with the January transfer window now concluded, in today's video I'm going to be going through all 24 Sky Bet League 2 teams and ranking them, putting them in a tier list maker. If you do go on to enjoy today's video, please make sure to drop a like on there for me. If you could try and hit 100 likes on today's video, that'd be massively appreciated. Subscribe if you're new as well. We are now on the road to 8,000 subscribers, so please make sure you are subscribed. If you haven't already, with that post notification bell on, it's free to do so and it does massively help out. Get your thoughts in as well down in the comment section down below. Let me know down below what team do you support and what are your thoughts on your window. What would you rate it out of 10 and what category would you put it in this tier list maker? But make sure to drop a like on there for me. Subscribe if you are new as well. And let's get into it. So here are the 5 categories that we are going to be using in today's video. We have stinky window, poor, bang average, solid business, and window winners. Starting out then with Doncaster Rovers. If we have a look at their permanent transfer, they just made the one signing permanently, and that was Jay McGrath coming in from St Patrick's Athletic on a free transfer. Now, I don't know too much about him, but he's a centre-half, and I know Doncaster needed some centre-halves this transfer window. Defensively, they've been so poor so far this season, and that is a signing that does really make sense. In terms of permanent outgoings, just the one in there with Adam Long going to AFC Fylde after his contract was terminated there. Again, a centre-half off the books, which I don't think he really played too much so far this season, and when he did, he didn't exactly impress. They made a number of loan signings. Connor Carty came in from Bolton Wanderers, but that loan has since been cut short after he sustained an injury against Bradford City in the EFL Trophy, so that's a bit of a shame for him. Matthew Craig is coming on loan from Tottenham Hotspur, a central midfield option, which is something that they did need because of the amount of injuries they've had in central midfield so far this season. Billy Waters has come in from on loan from Wrexham for the remainder of the campaign. He's never really done it at this level. Did pretty well though with Halifax in the National League a couple of seasons ago and hasn't really got much game time at Wrexham so far. Hakeem Adoulakan coming in from Lincoln City on a loan deal until the end of the season, I think could be a good signing. He has always been a very decent player. He's struggled a little bit in League One, and I think if Grant McCann can get the best out of Adoulakan, he'll be a very, very good player at this level. But you're looking back at 2016, 17 sort of times until the last time he really had a positive season. His move to Lincoln City hasn't really worked out so far, but I certainly think that one could be a positive signing. They also brought in Timothy Lowe to Tala on loan from Hull until the remainder of the campaign. Now, obviously, they needed to bring a goalkeeper in. Was it Ian Lawler? I'm pretty sure he's going to be out for the remainder of the season. And goalkeeper, I think it's Louis Jones, hasn't exactly impressed so far in the game time that he has had. In terms of some more departures as well, Mo Fowl returned to parent club at West Brom after his loan spell was cut short and got sent out on loan to Wall. So I do think that is a pretty significant loss for Doncaster. I know some of their fans are very split on him, but he's been played out of position quite a lot, and he scored a decent amount of goals for Doncaster in a side that haven't really scored many goals so far this season. They had a couple of youngsters go out on loan. Charlie Seaman joined Weldstone on loan for the remainder of the campaign. Overall, though, for me, I'd certainly say they're stronger coming out of the window than they were going into it. They haven't really lost, and they've added in some key areas which is certainly needed to improve. So the club that we're going in first is Doncaster Rovers. I would say they've had some pretty solid business so far. Well, not so far, in that January transfer window just gone by. Moving on then to Forest Green Rovers. They are up next, and they made a decent amount of signings, to be fair. Alex Rodriguez came in on a free transfer from Oxford. Emmanuel Sidibe, they paid money for to get him out of Bradford City, which I think is an interesting signing, as obviously I'm a Bradford fan myself. Sidibe is very, very poor. I was surprised that he actually got a move to another League 2 club. Obviously, more than likely, Forest Green will be in the National League next season. I do think Steve Cottrell is a decent appointment. I don't know how long the length of his contract is there, but I certainly think if they do go down, if there's anyone who's going to get them back up, Steve Cottrell could certainly be that man. But their main January signing was obviously Christian Doige coming in for an undisclosed fee from Hibernian. Hasn't quite hit the heights of what he'd done previously at Forest Green since departing, but obviously if you can get the best out of Doige, he's a very, very good striker at this level. In terms of players who had left the club, Matty Taylor joined rivals Cheltenham Town on a free transfer. He struggled for goals really at Forest Green, so that is a departure that does make sense. There are a couple of players who they brought in on loan as well. Dominic Tompkinson coming in from Blackpool, and I don't really know too much about some of the other signings. In terms of their outgoings, Teddy Jenks has joined Ross County on loan for the remainder of the campaign. That's one that really makes sense because he hasn't really hit the heights that he wanted so far this season. And they also saw Reece Welsh be recalled by Everton, a centre-half who didn't really impress at Forest Green Rovers. I'd say overall, I wouldn't really say they're stronger or weaker. I mean, I would say Doige is an improvement on Matty Taylor, but they needed to do more business for me. Bringing in a couple of loans from clubs higher up and kind of just hoping that they're going to hit the ground running is risky business for Forest Green. I think they're definitely preparing for life in the National League. Overall, I think when you're in a relegation battle, you need serious improvements, and I don't think they've really done that. So I'm going Forest Green Rovers. It's a stinky window from me. Next up then is Notts County. And if we have a look at their business so far, it was certainly interesting to say the least, to be fair. Lewis Macari came in on a free transfer from Stoke. Scott Robertson came in on a free transfer from Fleetwood. And then their main signing of the window was Alassane Jatta coming in from Danish side Viborg for an undisclosed fee. I mean, does anyone know anything about him? I certainly don't, but he's a striker. They needed some more competition up there, and I feel like that one obviously must be a decent signing if Notts County are signing him, but like I say, I don't really know too much. Dan Gosling was released after only 6 weeks at the football club. They brought in some loans as well, which I'm not really too sure about. Luke Ashby-Hammond coming in on loan from Fulham, not convinced by that signing whatsoever. Both their other goalkeepers aren't particularly great as well. They saw Ollie Tipton go back to Wolves. His loan didn't really work out. Charlie Colquitt coming in from Crewe on loan for the remainder of the campaign is a very interesting signing, considering they're both wanting the same thing out of this season, and that is promotion. But Colquitt has really struggled for fitness. If Notts County can keep him fit, I do think that is a pretty decent signing. In terms of their departures, they just had a young goalkeeper go on loan to Rochdale for the remainder of the campaign. I wouldn't say they're necessarily stronger, but I wouldn't say they're weaker. It's kind of been a pretty average window. Not a lot really changed in terms of major outgoings like your Jody Jones, your Macaulay Langstaff, them key players in that side. Nothing has really happened. So I think overall, it's probably a pretty average window, bang average, I'd say, for Notts County. Moving on then to team number 4, that is Colchester United. And something that always seems to happen with Colchester is in the summer, they never really look to improve their team. They get in a relegation battle, and then in January, they make some really, really good signings. And that is once again what has happened here. Connor Wilkinson has come in on an undisclosed fee from Motherwell. I think that is a very, very good signing in my opinion. He was the only permanent deal that came in, but Connor Wilkinson, if he can stay fit at this level, is a pretty decent signing, to be honest with you. In terms of their outgoings, nothing really too significant apart from Newby terminating his contract, but he'd been out on loan, I'm pretty sure, for the majority of the season so far. In terms of obviously a major departure, Joe Taylor being recalled by Luton Town to go to Lincoln City was a big blow, but I certainly think some of their signings that they've made on loan are pretty decent. Jaden Richardson coming in on loan from Aberdeen, I don't know too much about him, but Riley Harbottle coming in on loan from Hibernian I think is an absolutely excellent signing. He was brilliant last year for Mansfield. I'm stunned that Colchester have been able to pick him up on a loan deal. I think that is an absolutely brilliant signing. Alistair Smith is coming on loan from Lincoln City. I think I'm right in saying he was with Sutton United the last couple of seasons and done very well there. He's proven at League 2 level he's a very good central midfielder. Hasn't quite worked out at Lincoln. I think that one could be a decent signing. And obviously Harry Anderson is coming on loan from Stevenage, a very experienced winger at this level, and should provide a decent number of goal contributions on the wing for them. In terms of the loans going out, not a lot has really happened, to be honest with you. I would say overall they're stronger. Losing Joe Taylor is pretty significant, but I think Connor Wilkinson is more than an adequate replacement. Obviously they're slightly different profiles of striker, but overall they're definitely stronger for me coming out of the window than going into it. So Colchester United, similar to Doncaster Rovers, they're going in solid business. I would also probably say that Colchester have had a slightly better window than Doncaster Rovers, so I'll put them at the front of solid business. Moving on then to Accrington Stanley, they are up next, and in terms of permanent signings, they made none. In terms of outgoings, they only had the one, that was Owen Davenport going to Fleetwood after being released, so his contract must have expired there. In terms of loan incomings, Jake Bickerstaff came in from Wrexham, which I think is a very positive signing, because obviously Andrews was recalled by Birmingham, so there, I wouldn't say they're like for like, but striker for striker on a loan deal, it's one that does kind of make sense, and they didn't really have any significant departures, so not a lot of business really for Accrington. I would say they probably needed to do a little bit of business just to try and push them into the playoffs this season, but we know that their owner has put the club up for sale, announced that on Twitter, and they're not really going to ever spend the big money. So for me personally, I wouldn't say they're particularly stronger, but I feel like they could have done a little bit more business in my opinion. So I'm going to go with a poor window for Accrington Stanley. I would say they're probably ever so slightly weaker and they just didn't do enough business, so I'm going poor for Accrington Stanley. A quarter of the way through the video then, after we get through AFC Wimbledon, if we have a look at their signings, obviously they brought in Josh Kelly from Solihull Moors for an undisclosed fee. Ronan Curtis came in on a free transfer. Obviously he'd been released by Portsmouth a couple of months ago. Joe Lewis as well has made his loan move permanent from Stockport. Obviously I think he's injured at the moment, but he is a pretty decent player at this level. Their major departure though was Ali Al-Hamadi going to Ipswich Town for around £1.75 million, which is obviously an exceptional piece of business for a club at this level, but he's obviously a very, very good signing. They've made a couple of loan players, obviously losing Lemonheigh Evans. He was recalled back to Stockport. I think that was a pretty significant loss for them. He was pretty decent in that midfield. John Kaimani Gordon had struggled a little bit for game time last year at Carlisle, hadn't impressed so far this season with Cambridge, so it'll be interesting to see how he does get on there. Kofi Baumer is a young centre-half who's coming on loan from Crystal Palace. I think that one could be a decent addition, and then obviously the experience of John Joe O'Toole coming in from Mansfield on loan for the remainder of the campaign. Again, another centre-half option, can also play in midfield. Obviously, losing Al Hamadi is a very significant loss, and you know, Kelly's got big boots to fill, but I would say overall they're probably slightly stronger coming out of the window than going into it. But the big question is, can you replace Al Hamadi's goals? I'm not so sure. I would probably say it's either the bottom end of solid business or the top end of bang average. For now, I'm going to go the top end of bang average. That's one that we could change. I would certainly not disagree with someone putting them in the bottom end of solid business, but losing Al Hamadi is a very, very significant loss, and there's no denying that, and that could be a big blow for them in the second half of this campaign. So I'm just about going right at the very top of bang average for AFC Wimbledon. Welsh side Newport County are up next then, and they didn't really do too much business in this transfer window. Luke Jeffcott came in on a free transfer from St Johnstone. Obviously, previously of Plymouth Argyle. I think it was around the COVID sort of times when he had a very good spell with Plymouth. Since then, has really struggled, got the move to St Johnstone when he did okay there, but he's now back in England. Well, he's technically back in the English football leagues, shall we say, and I'll be interested to see how he does get on. There wasn't really many departures, to be honest with you, so I would say overall they're probably slightly stronger. Newport probably haven't really got much to play for so far for the remainder of this season, so I'd say overall probably just a pretty bang average window for Newport County. They've not really done much business, and considering where they are in the table, they probably didn't really need to do much. Promotion chasing at Mansfield Town are up next, and again, they didn't do much business in this transfer window. Tom Nichols came in for an undisclosed fee from Gillingham. I think that provides them another option up front. Obviously, Resour's going to be out for a long period of time. Lucas Akins is a different type of striker. Keeler Dunn is more of a number 10. Will Swan, you all know I'm a big fan of him, but he hasn't quite hit the heights from last season so far this campaign, so I think Nichols could be a decent signing. We all know they were chasing Lee Gregory all transfer window really to try and get him in on loan, and that one didn't quite materialise. Their only real departure was John Joe O'Toole going out on loan to AFC Wimbledon for the remainder of the campaign. Makes sense really for all parties. They get him off the wage bill, someone who's not really going to play much. He's really far down the pecking order now, and I feel like Mansfield are probably slightly stronger coming out of the window than going into it, so I'd probably say I'll put them at the bottom end of solid business. They did a little bit of business, maybe could have done a little bit more if they'd got Lee Gregory. I would maybe put them as a potential window winners, to be honest with you, because I think their team already is very, very good, and there's a lot of quality in that side. But Mansfield Town, for now, I'm going bottom end of solid business. Before we get into Sutton United, please make sure to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well if you are new. Get your thoughts down in the comment section down below as we move on to Sutton. Obviously, they're currently in a relegation battle. They made 2 transfers on a permanent deal. Dion Moores came in from Luez, who are currently in the Isthmian League, so that's a step 3 of non-league, I do believe, on a free transfer. Can he make the step up? I don't really know. Jay Williams came in on a permanent deal from Fulham. Again, don't really know too much about him. They had no transfers in terms of departures on a permanent basis. They made a couple of loans from some other London clubs that, again, I don't really know too much about. We know that, obviously, they don't have the biggest of transfer budgets. They got a couple players out the door, you know, on loan to Farnborough and Hampton and Richmond, who are never really going to play, to be honest with you. And I feel like they needed to do more business, but they don't really have the budget to do so. I would definitely say that in terms of the fact they're in a relegation battle, they haven't done enough. Can they rely on these loan players to come good? You know, it's a big gamble, and I would say similar to Forest Green Rovers, it's a stinky window for Sutton. I would say it's better than Forest Greens, but I still don't think it's particularly great. Someone who could potentially be dragged into a relegation battle is Grimsby Town, and their transfer business was a little bit interesting, if I'm being honest with you. They brought in a couple of players on permanent deals, like Doug Tharm coming in from Blackpool. Denver Hume coming in on a free transfer from Portsmouth, I think is a decent option at this level. And Curtis Thompson has come in from Cheltenham Town, central midfielder, on a free transfer. They obviously lost Camel Conte to Bristol Rovers. That is a very, very significant loss for them. He's been excellent for them so far this season. And obviously Michie Afeti had his contract terminated. He's since moved on to Ross County. And a bit of a modern day legend in Luke Waterfall moved to Hartlepool United on a free transfer. He was key for them in their promotion push. I don't really know why he has moved to Hartlepool, if I'm being honest with you. Grimsby fans, let me know down in the comment section down below, because I thought he was quite important to them. I thought he played quite a lot this season, but I might have got that one wrong. If I have, I do hold my hands up. In terms of their loans coming in, they've made, again, a couple of loan signings that I don't really know too much about, so I can't really comment on. And in terms of their loan departures, Otis Khan has joined Hartlepool on loan for the remainder of the campaign. He just never quite consistent enough really to make it at Grimsby Town. Losing Contena is a very significant loss. I would say they're probably slightly weaker coming out of the window than going into it. So overall for Grimsby Town, I'd probably say it has been a poor window. To be honest with you, I would say it's been worse than Accrington's as well. So I'm sticking Grimsby in the poor category. You might disagree. If you do, let me know down in the comment section down below. In terms of transfer business, Crawley Town are always a very weird team. They sign a lot of players that you've probably never really heard of, and they've done the same again here. Jeremy Kelly has come in from FC Tulsa on a free transfer. I don't watch American football, so I have no idea if he is any decent. And Ryan Sanford has come in from Dartford, another goalkeeping option for them. In terms of the departures, none on a permanent basis, and they had just the one going out on loan, but he's gone out on loan to Braintree, so I'm going to presume that is a youngster. No one really came in on loan apart from Mustafa Gunju. Apologies if I have pronounced that one wrong. He's coming on loan from Huddersfield for the remainder of the campaign. They also saw Maguire's loan from Chesterfield extended until the end of the season, and Aaron Henry's loan from Charlton, he was recalled from there after a pretty unsuccessful loan spell. Didn't really do too much business. They don't really need to. They're kind of just going to probably finish in mid-table. I think obviously their manager's doing a pretty decent job there so far. I think he's Scott Lindsay. He's doing a pretty decent job. You know, Crawley absolutely ran us ragged a couple of weeks ago, and I feel like overall it's probably average business. They're not strengthened, they're not weakened, so yeah, overall I'm going to go with a bang average, probably just above Newport County. I'm going bang average for Crawley Town. Next up then we move to promotion chasing MK Dons, and in terms of their permanent deals coming in, Stephen Wern, apologies if I have pronounced that wrong, it's coming in on an undisclosed fee from Gateshead. I think that is a very good signing. Gateshead have got a lot of good young players. A lot of them have gone to Notts County, but this one has gone to MK Dons, and I do think that one is a pretty decent signing. They also brought, they let Ash Hunter go out after his contract was terminated there. I'm pretty sure he went to AFC Fylde, if I am right in saying that. They brought in a couple of players in on loan. Lewis Bate coming in on loan from Leeds United, I think is an exceptional signing in my opinion, and I don't really know too much about some of their other signings. Obviously, their main business was recalling Dan Kemp. That alone makes them a very, very strong outfit for the remainder of this season. They managed to keep hold of him as well. They also saw a couple of players go out on loan. Mo Isa joined Exeter, Jonathan Lecco joined Burton, and then pretty much came back straight away with Craig McGillivray also joining Stevenage. Connor Grant went out on loan to Barnsley. So it's interesting that they've let 4 players go out on loan there, and they've all gone to leagues, they've all gone to teams in the league above, which is interesting. But yeah, like I said, bringing Dan Kemp back is very, very good business to do. I would say overall they're stronger coming out of the window than going into it. I'll probably say they're right at the top of solid business. Maybe not as good as Colchester's business, to be fair, but MK Dons certainly a solid window from them. After that then we move on to Gillingham. We've done a decent amount of business in this transfer window. Romeo Hutton has come in on an undisclosed fee from Swindon Town. Obviously this season hasn't quite hit the heights that he would have probably wanted. Last year was one of the best fullbacks in this division. Hopefully he can rekindle his career at the Gills. Josh Andrews came in on a permanent deal from Birmingham after being recalled from his loan spell with Accrington Stanley. I think he's a good threat at this level. Big physical target man. You know, you imagine the Gills this season could now have a front two of Andrews and Hawkins. That is a lot of firepower up there in terms of just, you know, physicality, wearing defenders out, and then you bring off someone a little bit pacier on off the bench, and them defenders are really, really going to struggle. So I think that one is a pretty decent signing. Obviously, losing Tom Nichols to Mansfield is an interesting one. He makes the rounds. He's had a number of clubs now as Tom Nichols over the last few years. You think Bristol Rovers, Crawley, Mansfield, Gillingham. You know, he's had a decent amount of clubs. Hopefully, for his sake, Mansfield is somewhere where he can make his own home. They also saw Lewis Walker go out to Woking on a free transfer, and Shea Alexandra's contract was terminated there. In terms of some loan players coming in, Josh Walker came in on loan from Burton, and they also brought in a loanee from Watford that I don't really know too much about. They had a couple of players leave the club on loan, like Macaulay Bonne going out on loan to Cambridge for the remainder of the season. I would say overall they're probably stronger coming out of the window than going into it, but ever so slightly. I think Nichols was a pretty decent player for the Gills, if I'm being honest, but Hutton is obviously a pretty good signing. I would say overall slightly stronger. I would go probably right at the bottom of solid business, because I think it's only ever so slightly stronger. So I'm going bottom end of solid business for the Gills. Next up then, one of the teams that did the most business, I believe, in the January transfer window was Swindon Town. Lots of players coming in, lots of players going out. The two significant losses were obviously Dan Kemp being recalled from MK Dons and Jake Young being recalled from Bradford City. Them two were pivotal to their even ever so slight success in the first half of the campaign. Obviously, they've had a change of manager. I'm pretty sure they've not actually appointed a permanent manager since sacking Michael Flynn, but they made a number of good signings. I think Paul Glatzel coming in from Liverpool for an undisclosed fee. He's never really cemented a club. He's had a number of loan spells, so he'll be hoping that obviously Swindon can finally be somewhere where he makes his own home. Aaron Drinan coming in from Leyton Orient. If you can keep him fit, I think he could be a pretty decent option at this level, if I'm being honest with you. In terms of their outgoings, Liam Kinsella joined Cheltenham on a free transfer, which I thought was interesting business. Romeo Hutton obviously leaving the club was a little bit of a blow, but it depends how much money they got in for him. I'm not really too sure how much that was. Their main signing of the transfer window, though, was obviously Harry McCurdy coming in on loan from Hibernian for the remainder of the campaign. He's not going to be as good as a Dan Kemp. You know, you never really know what you're going to get with Harry McCurdy. He's only really had one decent season in his whole career. Last 18 months have struggled at Hibernian for not only fitness but for form as well. And I think if anyone is going to get Harry McCurdy back to his best, it will be Swindon Town. They didn't really have anyone major depart the club on loan. I would say they're obviously weaker. You know, losing their three best players in Hutton, Kemp and Young is significant losses, but I certainly think the players that they've replaced them with are not too bad, if I'm being honest with you. I'm going to put it as a poor window. I'm going to put them right at the top of poor, though, because I think their signings have been good, but it was always going to be hard for them to replace the quality of a Kemp, a Young and a Hutton. So it's poor business, but is it poor? Like I mentioned earlier, there is going to be some controversies in these videos. There always is, and if you disagree, feel free to give me some abuse down in the comment section down below. You've probably already wrote your comment, so it doesn't really matter. Moving on then to Barrow AFC. They didn't really do too much in this transfer window. No permanent departures or incomings. They brought in Cole Stockton on loan from Burton for the remainder of the campaign, which I think is a pretty decent option at this level. Hasn't quite hit the heights of his Morecambe days at Burton so far this season, and Pete Wild, if anyone, is going to be the man to get the best out of Cole Stockton, an absolutely exceptional manager at this level. Like Jed Garner got on loan to Morecambe for the remainder of the campaign, and Courtney Duffus got on loan to Hartlepool for the remainder of the season as well. Obviously, to get them their wages off the wage bill. Two strikers out, one striker in. I certainly think they've improved. They didn't really need to do too much business because of obviously how well they are doing so far this season. I'd say overall solid business for Barrow. I'd probably put them in between Doncaster Rovers and MK Dons. A very good window for the Bluebirds, if I'm being honest. Matt Sadler's are up next then, and we look at their business that they've done. Only the two permanent deals coming in, both for undisclosed fees. I don't really know too much about either of them, but they seem like good upcoming young players, if I'm being honest with you. They didn't really have any significant permanent departures as well. In terms of their incomings, Josh Gordon returned to the football club on loan from Burton for the remainder of the campaign, and Mo Fowler came in on loan from West Brom for the remainder of the campaign. He had a pretty decent first half of the season with Doncaster Rovers. Didn't really lose anyone significant in terms of their loan deals as well. Roland Maniese joined Aldershot on loan for the remainder of the campaign. I would say overall they're probably stronger than what they were going into it. Obviously, I think, is that one of the lads they signed? Yeah, Evan Weir actually signed from Drogheda, has gone back out on loan to Drogheda for the remainder of the season. But I'd say overall certainly slightly stronger than what they were coming into the window, so I'll probably put them at the bottom end of solid business. I think it has been a pretty solid window for them. Maybe slightly better than Gillingham's. I'll put Walsall in solid business. After that then, we move on to Crewe Alexandra. Obviously, Charlie Kirk wasn't a January signing, but we'll include him in this list just to boost Crewe up a little bit, because I quite like Crewe as a club. But obviously, he's returned to the club on a free transfer from Charlton. I'm pretty sure Charlton signed him for like 500 grand, something like that. He had an absolutely horrid time there for a number of different reasons, but he'll be looking to hopefully finally settle back down, find himself back at home at Crewe Alexandra, and it'll be interesting to see how he does get on for the remainder of this campaign. They didn't really lose anyone too significant on a permanent deal. Obviously, Connor Riordan. I'm honestly so sorry. He joined Blackburn for an undisclosed fee. Again, Crewe always get the good money in for their players, so I'm not too worried about that. Ed Turns came in on loan from Brighton for the remainder of the campaign. Josh Osterfield came in on loan from Huddersfield. I think that one, for me personally, he's a very, very good signing. He's had a number of decent loan spells at this level and even the level above, so I think that one for Crewe could be a nice piece of business. And obviously the interesting move with Charlie Colkett going out on loan to Notts County for the remainder of the campaign. Again, the struggle for fitness, but if Notts County can keep him fit, he is a very good player at this level. I'd say overall, certainly stronger coming out the window than going into it. I would say definitely solid business, probably quite near the top of solid business. I'll put him in between Colchester and MK Dons. I think it has been a very good window for Crewe. My team at Bradford City are up next then, and before we get into that, please make sure to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well if you are new. Get your thoughts in down in the comment section down below. Now, I actually did a more in-depth video of our transfer window yesterday for the tier 3 channel members, so make sure to go check out the membership scheme if you haven't already to get access to that video. We brought in 2 players on permanent deals, that being Sam Walker. He came in on a free transfer from Charlton as a Harry Lewis replacement. From what I've seen so far, certainly hasn't improved us. He looks quite poor, if I'm being honest with you, and I mentioned it in yesterday's video. If you're basing it on age is irrelevant, you know, the money is irrelevant, which player would I rather have? I think I'd still rather have Harry Lewis. He obviously joined Carlisle on a permanent deal for an undisclosed fee, rumoured fee of around £175,000. I certainly think we could have got more in for him. Last season probably won us about 20 points. He was absolutely incredible, certainly the best goalkeeper in the league in my opinion. I know Vigaroo was decent, but Lewis for me just slightly tipped him because Orient's defence was comfortably better than Bradford City's last year. But this year, Lewis had been poised, cost us at least 10, 15 points, and that was just in the first half of the season. He had an absolutely torrid time, but I'd still rather have him over Walker. Callum Kavanagh came in on a permanent deal, from Middlesbrough on a 2.5-year deal. We've paid money for him. He looked bright on his debut, but his 2 previous loan spells to this level with Newport County and Harrogate Town, I think he'd only scored 1 or 2 goals. You know, he'd really struggled for form, which is what we need at this moment in time, a goal scorer. And yeah, hopefully Callum Kavanagh can provide that. We got some of the deadwood out the door, like Emmanuel Sidibe joining Forest Green. How we got a fee in for him, I'll never really know, if I'm being honest with you. We managed to bring in Tyreek Wright. He came back to the football club on loan from Plymouth for the remainder of the season. Last year did very well for us in the first half of the campaign, with obviously Chisholm Afoka and Rayhan Tulloch returning to their parent clubs back in the Midlands. But Wright for me, if he can keep himself fit, you know, he is currently injured. He got injured on his debut, but I think he could be a decent piece of business for us. And we let a couple of players go out on loan as well, with Viden Oliver joining Stevenage on loan for the remainder of the campaign. Jake Young was recalled from his season on loan with Swindon Town and has looked pretty positive in his games so far. And Timmy Odesina's loan spell with Woking has been extended until the remainder of the campaign. The business that we did wasn't awful. I think Walker is not an improvement on Lewis for me, and we needed to do more business. Obviously, Tyreek Wright is an improvement on Emmanuel Sidibe, but we needed to do more business, and that is why, for me personally, I think it was a poor window. I'm putting us at the bottom of poor. We needed to do more business. We need to get more players out the door as well. We've still got a massive squad. We're only 2 players lighter coming out of the window than what we were going into it, and for me personally, we just didn't do enough business. We needed to get at least 5 or 6 more players out the door, and we needed a couple of wing-backs, you know, one on either side. We could have done with a better goalkeeper signing. We needed another box-to-box central midfielder for me, and I would have taken a striker on loan maybe for the remainder of the campaign as well. But overall, a pretty poor window, very underwhelming, and my bantams are going in the bottom of poor. Wasn't impressed whatsoever. Yorkshire neighbours, Harrogate Town, are up next then, and they did some pretty good business, to be honest with you. James Belshaw came in for an undisclosed fee from Bristol Rovers. He'd had a number of emergency loans in around the November, December period. You know, he'd had a couple with Forest Green as well, but I think he is a decent goalkeeper at this level. I think that one could be a pretty decent signing. They had 2 pretty significant departures. Obviously, Luke Armstrong, he nearly got his big move to Wrexham in the summer. They had some crazy drama with that on deadline day and didn't manage to get that through. He then joined Carlisle for an undisclosed fee, where he hasn't exactly hit the ground running so far, but again, he didn't really want to be at Harrogate, so that is a piece of business they kind of needed to make, if I'm being honest. Kane Ramsey also joined Charlton for an undisclosed fee. Again, I think that one is a pretty significant loss for them, but again, if they got good money in for him, then, you know, you could go out and replace him. In terms of their loan signings, I don't really know too much about the 2 that they brought in on deadline day, if I'm being honest with you, and also they had a couple of loan departures, but again, nothing really too significant. I would say they are weaker coming out the window than going into it. Obviously, Belshaw is a good signing, but Ramsey, losing him is a pretty significant loss, and Luke Armstrong, we kind of knew he was going to go anyway. But overall, for me, I'd say Harrogate are slightly weaker coming out of the window than going into it, so I'm going to put them in poor, probably in between Accrington and Grimsby. I think that'll be a good place to put them. After Harrogate then, we move on to Stockport County, and they made some pretty decent signings. Odin Bailey coming in from Salford City on a permanent deal. Obviously, they had him on loan for the first half of the campaign. He'd had a number of loan spells to clubs like Salford and Forest Green. I think he actually made his deal with Salford permanent, but he hadn't really settled down and found himself at home. He now seems to have done that with Stockport County, and that is obviously a pretty promising signing for them. They didn't really lose anyone too significant on permanent deals. Obviously, Joe Lewis turned his loan into a permanent at AFC Wimbledon. Billy Chadwick, when they signed him in the summer on a one-year deal with the option of a further year, sent him out on loan, I think, to Gateshead, and then in January he's joined York on a free transfer. So I'm not really too sure what's going on there with him. They also brought in a couple of loan players who I don't really know too much about. Lewis Cass from Port Vale, I think he's probably the pick of the bunch for me, and obviously the recalled Lemonheigh Evans from his time with AFC Wimbledon. I'd say overall, they didn't really do too much business, to be honest with you. You know, I thought they made some okay-ish signings. I think making Bailey a permanent deal is obviously quite significant, but I would say overall a pretty average window because they didn't really need to do too much business. I'd probably say they're in between Wimbledon and Notts County, and yeah, Stockport are going in bang average for me. After that one then, we move on to Morecambe FC, and they had an absolutely horrible transfer window in terms of their loan players who were recalled. Michael Mellon was recalled back to Burnley, Tom Bloxham was recalled back to Shrewsbury, Eli King was recalled back to Cardiff, and James Connolly was recalled back to Bristol Rovers. 4 very, very significant departures for them, and I think that overall they probably have slightly struggled to replace them. Guion Edwards came in on a free transfer. Brandon Barker came in on a free transfer as well. I don't know too much about Caden Harrock that they brought in from QPR, but Edwards and Barker have always shown a lot of promise and potential, but over the last couple of years haven't really done it too much. Lost Adam Mayer as well on a permanent deal to Millwall the day before transfer deadline day. He was brilliant for them so far this season, but as long as they got, again, a big fee in for him, then it's not the end of the world. They brought in a couple of loanees. Archie Mayer came in on loan from Norwich, and that one is a pretty decent signing. They brought in Jed Garner on loan from Barrow as well. I'm not so sure about that one, to be honest with you, and I don't really know too much about some of the other players, and then they didn't really lose anyone on loan. I'd say overall, they're obviously a lot weaker than what they were coming out of the window than they were going into it, but it's not really their fault. But again, that is the problem with loan players at times. Overall, it's a stinky window for Morecambe. I would probably say it's at the top of stinky because some of their signings weren't too bad, but some of the players that they've lost are obviously significant departures, and I'm unfortunately going to have to put the Shrimps in a stinky window. Just 3 teams left to go then. Next up is Tranmere Rovers. We look at their business. No permanent players coming in the window just gone by, and no permanent players leaving the club as well. They brought in Rob Apter after losing Rob Apter in the transfer window as well. You know, he had 11 days back at Blackpool or something like that after he was recalled there, signed a new contract, and then came back to Tranmere. That is a very significant piece of business. They actually didn't do any business looking at that, apart from bringing Apter back to the club. They didn't really do anything. Keeping Apter is obviously positive, but if Tranmere really wanted to propel this season, I feel like they needed to do more business, which they simply didn't do. So I'd say overall, it is a poor window for Tranmere from the point of view that they didn't do much business. Yes, you could argue that it's been a bang average window because they're not stronger or weaker, but if Tranmere are serious about pushing for the playoffs this season, they needed to do some business. They haven't done that, and that is my personal reason why I'm putting Tranmere in a poor window. The penultimate team then on this list is Salford City, and if we have a look at their business, then they brought in just the one player on a permanent deal, Jez Davies, coming in from Burnley on a free transfer. They obviously lost Luke Bolton for an undisclosed fee to Wrexham. That is a very significant loss because he's a very, very good player at this level, and Odin Bailey's move from Stockport was made from a loan into a permanent deal as well. So they had a lot of money coming into the club. They didn't really spend it, to be honest with you. They brought in a couple, a loanee from West Ham on loan for the remainder of the campaign, I presume as the Luke Bolton replacement. In terms of their loan departures, nothing really significant. They're definitely weaker coming out of the window than what they were going into it, losing somebody of Luke Bolton's quality, and I would say overall, I wouldn't say it's a stinky window. It's probably just a very, is it a stinky window for a club like Salford, considering where they are in the table? Actually, you know, they're currently in a relegation battle. To lose someone like Luke Bolton and not replace him, I think that is a stinky window for Salford. You could maybe argue it's a poor window, but for now, I'm putting them in stinky. I think that is a really, really significant loss for them, and you know, they could definitely get dragged into that relegation right down at the bottom. And yeah, I'm going stinky window for Salford. And the final team on this list then is Wrexham AFC. We have a look at the business that they did. They brought in Luke Bolton from Salford for an undisclosed fee. We touched on him there. Absolutely exceptional signing at this level. And Jack Marriott came in on an undisclosed fee from Fleetwood. Marriott's career has been very interesting. Obviously had a great spell with Peterborough, then moved to Derby, which was, you know, tampered by injuries. Went back to Peter and it didn't really work out there, so got his move to Fleetwood. Started out well, then seemed to have a falling out with a number of different managers and didn't really want to be there. So he's got the move to Wrexham. Obviously at League 2 level, Jack Marriott is an exceptional signing if you can keep him fit. They've obviously spent the big money. In terms of their departures, they got Jake Bickerstaff out on loan as well as Billy Waters, two players who weren't really getting the game time, so that one does kind of make sense. And we also saw Bryce Asana and Liam McAlinden be paid up as well. Now, new contracts don't count towards your transfer business success for obviously tying Paul Mullin and Elliot Lee down to the summer of 2027. That is two very smart pieces of business, but overall, they're massively stronger coming out of the window than what they were going into it. They've kept hold of Arthur Okonkwo as well from Arsenal, which is obviously big news for them. They're definitely much stronger coming out of the window than what they were going into it, and for me personally, they are my January 2024 transfer window winners. And now, when I made this tier list, the plan was to maybe have 3 or 4 teams in that top category and then end up picking a winner. But it's worked out that Wrexham are the only team that are going in there. So they are the January transfer window winners, and they are the only team in that category. In solid business, we've got Colchester United, Crewe Alexandra, MK Dons, Barrow AFC, Doncaster Rovers, Mansfield Town, Walsall FC and Gillingham FC. In bang average, we've got AFC Wimbledon, Stockport County, Notts County, Crawley Town and Newport County. All the counties in bang average. In poor, we've got Tranmere Rovers, Swindon Town, Accrington Stanley, Harrogate Town, Grimsby Town and Bradford City. And in stinky window, we've got Salford, Morecambe, Sutton and Forest Green as well. Now, like I say, everyone is different. Some teams needed to do business, some teams didn't, depending on where they are in the table. So it's not just based on who they signed, because that would be very stupid, wouldn't it? But that is where I'm going to leave it then for today's video. If you have enjoyed it, please make sure to drop a like on there for me. If you could try and hit 100 likes, as I said at the start of today's video, that would be massively appreciated. Subscribe if you're new as well. We are on the road to 8,000 subscribers, so please make sure you are subscribed. If you haven't already, with that post notification bell on, it's free to do so, and it does massively help out. Get your thoughts in as well down in the comment section down below. Let me know down below, who do you support and what are your thoughts on your team's transfer window? What would you rate out of 10 and what category would you put them in my video? Do you agree where I've put your team? Have I missed any signings as well? Obviously, I got all the information off of Wikipedia, so if anything is wrong there, I can only apologise, but I went off the fact that all of Bradford City's business was accurate, so I was kind of hoping that everyone else's would be the same. Thank you all very much for watching though. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you very soon for another one. Peace.